You finished a config file, a log bundle, or a static site build. It is sitting on your laptop, and the server that needs it is 2 networks away. You can SSH to that server, but copy and paste is not a deployment method, and email is not operations. This is where many new admins reach for a random file sharing tool when SSH already gives you the transport, authentication, encryption, and host verification. Today is the SCP command tutorial. Push a file, pull a file, copy a directory, then use sftp when you want to look around interactively. SCP is the command line file copy interface most admins learn first for SSH. You give it a source, a destination, and it moves data over an SSH connection. SFTP is the interactive file transfer client that feels like old FTP. You connect, run commands like ls, put, get, cd, and quit, but the transport is SSH, not plain FTP. Both use the same server, same users, same key-based authentication, same host key checks, and the same encryption as SSH. The difference is workflow. SCP is best when you already know exactly what file goes where. SFTP fits when you want to browse, upload, download, and inspect packs during one session. Mechanically, your client opens an SSH connection to the remote host. First comes the host key check, the same protection you saw when you first used SSH. Then, user authentication happens, usually with your private key, or with a password if the server allows that. After that, file data moves inside the encrypted SSH channel. One version detail matters. Modern OpenSSH SCP, since 9.0, uses the SFTP protocol by default, behind the familiar SCP command syntax. Older systems may still use the legacy SCP protocol, unless configured otherwise. For day-to-day admin work, the command shape is the same. Local paths look normal, and remote paths use user@host:path. Walk the lines on screen. First, scp app.log deploy at web:/tmp/. That copies the local file app.log to the remote server named web, logging in as deploy, and writes it under /tmp. Second line flips the direction. The source is remote, deploy at web:/tmp/app.log, and the destination is dot, meaning the current local directory. Third line adds -r recursive, so the local directory site is copied to /var/www on the server. Fourth line starts an SFTP session using the same SSH login. Once inside, put app.log uploads that file. You can also use get for downloads, ls to list, cd for remote directories, lcd for local directories, and quit to leave. Here is a normal small server pattern. You build a static site locally into a directory called site. The web administrator has already made /var/www writable by the deploy user, or better, created a specific application directory owned by deploy. You run scp-r./site, deploy at web:/var/www/. That creates or replaces files under /var/www/site. Then verify with a normal SSH command. List that remote directory and check ownership, timestamps, and file count. If something looks off, open SFTP deploy at web, run ls/var/www/site, inspect the remote view, and quit. SCP is the copy action, SFTP is the inspection and adjustment session. The first mistake is direction. With SCP, the side containing user@host: is the remote side. Put that on the right to upload, put it on the left to download. Second mistake, copying a directory without -r. SCP will refuse or copy less than you expected. Third, permissions. SCP does not magically become root on the far end. If deploy cannot write /var/www, the copy fails, and that is good. Fix ownership or deploy to a staging path and promote with a controlled sudo command. Security note, do not ignore host key warnings. They tell you the server identity changed or your trust file changed. Also quote paths with spaces or shell characters. Boring file names make operations safer. In the SSH Foundations tier, file transfer sits right after basic login because it uses the same mental model. If you can SSH deploy at web, you can usually SCP and SFTP to that host with the same key and policy. Later in the series, we will add SSH config aliases, agent behavior, bastion hosts, and automation. We will also cover rsync, which is usually better for repeated syncs, large trees, deletion rules, and bandwidth savings. For now, learn the simple split. SCP for one clear copy operation, SFTP when you want an interactive remote file prompt. Practice only on a machine you administer, a lab virtual machine, a cloud test box, or another Linux host on your local area network. Create a tiny local file with the commands on screen. Replace user and host with your account and the server name. First, upload the file to /tmp with SCP. Then SSH to the server and confirm it exists, or use SFTP user at host and run ls/tmp. Next, reverse the direction. Copy user at host :/tmp/a.txt back into a different local directory. Finally, create a local directory with 2 files and repeat the upload using scp-r. 5 minutes, and the direction syntax will stick. 3 beats to remember. 1. SCP is source then destination, and the remote side is marked with user at host :path. 2. Use -r for directories, and expect normal Unix permissions on the server to decide what works. 3. SFTP gives you an interactive FTP-style session, but it still rides over SSH with the same authentication, encryption, and host key trust. Tomorrow we keep building the SSH base layer with another practical admin topic. New SSH episode daily on this channel, and the daily ranked CVE brief is linked in the description.